Welcome to Season 4 of the Powered by Rock podcast. We'll bring you the best stories in rock music with a focus on highlighting independent rock musicians and their music from all over the world. No, rock music isn't dead. It's getting better and better. It's just time for you to start paying attention again. With that said, let's get this party started.
The mountain's gonna rise and fall by me.
Hello and welcome to the Powered by Rock podcast, where I'm going to be speaking with a man who has had a great impact in my musical life today, in Scott Klopfenstein from the Littlest Man Band, and who's also a former member of the legendary ska band Real Big Fish, as well as a player in various other influential bands in the 90s California ska scene like the Scholars. I still remember watching Sell Out on MTV for an entire summer and rocking out to every Real Big Fish album since that day, 15 years and more, 25 maybe now. I don't even know how many years it's been. Scott did leave officially, maybe unofficially, leave Real Big Fish back in 2011, but has been fronting the Littlest Man Band since 2003 or so, with some gaps in there to pursue other areas of life like starting a family and dabbling in other artistic endeavors. I recently saw him perform live in Las Vegas, and I was very impressed by how much his style and sound had evolved, especially for a guy who I came to know as the goofball trumpet player in my early years. He's truly a legend of ska and very much an icon of the scene in my eyes. Today, I'm honored to welcome Scott Klopfenstein to the show. Hey, Scott, how's it going?
Good, Isaac. How you doing?
Pretty good. Yeah, it's. I've kind of inadvertently met you years ago. I think you guys were playing in Fargo, North Dakota. That's where I grew up and I went to high school. And we drove all the way across. I think it was like you guys and maybe Zebra Head and like Pushover maybe might have been the opening band.
Oh, okay.
Years ago, like 2000 or 1999 even. So this was years and years and years ago. So that's how old I am. But obviously you're that old as well. So
yeah, I'm no spring chicken, that's for sure.
Yeah. But I mean, just having you here is a great honor. It's one of my, Real Big Fish is by far one of my favorite bands of all time. And I've come to enjoy the Littlest Man Band a lot. And it's a bit different. So I think what I want to do, you've had so many different awesome things happen to you in your life. And, there's really great stories that you're going to tell. But I do want to kind of start with
hopefully let's get, hopefully I could be a complete drip, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
As
like,
we've
oh
stated, I'm closer to wine than grape, you know what I mean? So
that's a good point. All right. So the best story I think I want to start with is kind of it's a recent struggle of yours that you've pretty much had that's changed your outlook on life, your outlook on music, and a lot of other stuff. And it's your battle with Lyme disease. I believe you were improperly or misdiagnosed for that early on, if I remember correctly. But basically, now that you know what you're kind of fighting and you've been doing this for years, how is this affecting you as a person and then also as a musician?
Well, I mean, so the actual official diagnosis of Lyme is pretty recent. I mean, it was like the beginning, or it was the end of last year, I feel like. And it's interesting because as we were going through and preparing and starting to work with the practice that we've been working with, these wonderful people at a place called the Holtorf Medical Group, especially the way that Lyme kind of rolls itself out is I'm unaware of the changes because they kind of happen, a lot of it for me, the progression was very subtle.
Yeah.
But people around me noticed changes in my personality and my ability to function on a day-to-day level. And I could excuse these things as just being like, well, I'm an artist, I'm a wacky, like my brain does crazy things. And I could still, to a degree, function artistically. Music, just like whatever it was, that was always easy. But a lot of like executive functioning, getting stuff done, understanding, complicated, just a lot of things that also people are like, oh, well, you're just getting old. It's like, okay, well, I guess I'm just getting old. we just excuses that until it became just over the pandemic, um, it was just too much.
Yeah.
I mean, as we're like trying to keep our heads above water financially, emotionally, spiritually, and my wife and we were just like, what is going on? And it's like, we're firm believers in the fact that everybody's doing the best they can with what they've got. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And some people don't have a lot, and it's a whole thing. We can get into that later, but it doesn't mean that what was going on, as much as we were trying to address things on a positive level. I mean, we were both getting into therapy to deal with certain things that we had separately been through, and then things, difficulties of being married to one another.
Yeah.
My wife and I love each other very much, but I can speak for myself. I'm not the easiest person in the world to get along with.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
and
weird how hard that marriage is when you truly love this person and they're like your best friend, but it's like you drive me fucking nuts sometimes.
Well, yeah, I mean, and it's like I tend to come at things kind of from a very side angle point of view. That's just the way that my brain dissects information in the world. Like, it's like that anyway.
Yeah.
So, it's very confusing to try to reach a level of understanding. And so, anyway, um, we we had a friend that we were both kind of confiding in, and great closed mouth friend who never like cross pollinated information. Um, and she had been through some Lyme and co-infections and things like this, and Borrelia. And so she was like, "Hey, this kind of looks like this," and we were like, "Well, I guess, I mean, like I had, you know, and so we started investigating. Now, the thing that's unfortunate is that the American Medical Association and the medical community at large don't recognize chronic Lyme disease as a real thing or a problem, and so you have to go private practice. Like, my
Yeah.
insurance doesn't cover really any of this,
Yeah.
and so I mean, we got involved in that, and but getting back kind of to your question, sorry, I have been called what I love to say is tangential, but it's really just scatterbrained.
Yeah.
Um, the way I mean, like, so much of what I do for a living requires me to be administratively organized. There's a lot of executive functioning that goes into it. I can write a song, I can play a show, I can do all that, but there's so much more to this work and this business than
Yeah.
that. And that's the stuff that really started tanking for me.
Yeah.
My ability to juggle and keep straight all of the things, and even for my manager got really frustrated because I was just like, I can't wrap my brain around complicated things, and again, like I've always been kind of quote, tangential, scatterbrained, whatever it is you want to say. Like, it's just like my brain shoots off in different directions, which is really useful in a lot of conditions,
Yeah.
especially in performing live and in writing and in any creative pursuit. But as far as getting tasks done, it's garbage. It
Yeah.
is absolutely not great. And so a lot of the things that needed to happen for the business to progress or even sustain, you know, um, just weren't getting done. And there's nobody but me to do them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not like the Littlest Man Band is more of an idea and a collective consciousness than an actual, like, everybody. I've got cats that are in different bands moving around and doing a lot of stuff. So it's like I got people who can fill in. And then when it comes to recording, like, I've got a core group of guys that I like to use. But then, like, I used Tony Austin from Kamasi Washington's band and Dennis Ham from Thundercats band on the last set of recordings to come in and like play, and it's like, I like doing that. So it's like, but again, that requires me to be on top of things and talking with people and organizing and like working with recording schedules and producers. And it's just like, my brain just goes,
Yeah. The logistics. I mean, even for people who are not having any sort of Lyme disease, logistics can be a battle. Scheduling, timing, moving stuff around, all that stuff. So it is one of those things that, as you get, brain fog, as you call it, or any of that stuff, it's like, well, I forgot even what the first step is now. Like, where do I even start? Does that ever kind of feel like that to you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like I was helping prepare dinner the other night, and we were using one of those, like they ship all the ingredients to you and there's a thing, and it's like, and that's really useful for us because again, like I need very clear instructions that I can look at and go back to and stuff. But it took me an hour to go through one of these steps that should take 15 minutes. And it's really taken both my wife and I some real time and surrender and vulnerability to understand that it's not that I don't want to do these things. It's not, it's that it's like, this is what it really takes for me to be able to process this information and move forward. And there's a lot of shame that comes with it for me, and guilt and stress, which makes it worse, to be fair. And so it's this compounding problem that has been actually getting in some ways better, and in some ways like it's much better in the stress and guilt and shame areas, because now that we're open about it and we know kind of what's going on, we're both, my wife and I and my family and just, people that I'm working with have a little more understanding and a little more patient. And I know that they understand, so I'm not imposing shame and guilt on myself. But there really is this thing that I've been carrying around for a while that is, I'm just a bad person.
It's not easy for people to look after you when you're a fully capable person otherwise, right?
Right. I mean, it's like, it's this thing, and I still struggle with it. It's just like, because that's how it was given to me without knowing what was going on. Is what's wrong with you? Like, why can't you just pull yourself up by your bootstraps? All this stuff. And it's one of the main characteristics of this struggle and that people I've talked to have been struggling with chronic Lyme, is the first thing that comes out of everybody's mouth. And I won't cry about it now, but I've cried plenty every time I hear it, is, you're not crazy. Like that's the first thing every person who has struggled with chronic Lyme says to me, is, you're not crazy. It's not your fault. And it's like, what a thing to have to say to one another as sick people. Like, it really, it's, first of all, it was incredible, and what an alleviation to hear. And I continue to need to hear it, which is why I continue to try to connect with other people who have this disease and struggle with chronic Lyme. But it's a mentality that kind of takes a while to breed out. You have to really replace it with a lot of positivity, and there's some things you have to do that are that deal with retraining your chronic stress response and your parasympathetic responses and your neuroplasticity, and so I think the thing that's interesting about Lyme, and again, maybe this is a tangential, but it's something that we need to think about in Western medicine to begin with, is it's like, anytime you're dealing with illness, there are multiple facets to the way we're affected. There's not just the physical, but there's the emotional, the mental. And the physical represents in many different ways. I mean, if you take into consideration, so Freud had, psychoanalytics, right? Well, there's also there's bioanalytics, which there's this great book called Fear of Life. I forget who wrote it, but it's like it's basic. I mean, it's something we understand to be true, and yet we don't treat it as. It's like with any kind of psychological condition, there's a physical component of it. People who have hard times with their, with their self-esteem, shoulders and what have you, and crunching and what have you, or they stand straight up and they're very rigid and there's a lot of tension. And it's like, if we don't treat if we're not holistic about how we treat illness, then the way we recover can't be complete.
Yeah.
We're, and this is my own personal opinion and based on just my own experience, but I mean, we all know we're not just physical, but we're emotional and psychological beings.
Yeah.
As well as, I think, spiritual. Yeah. Whatever that means to you. There's no, I'm not going with any denomination of spirituality, just the fact that we have to acknowledge that there's energy and information that sits between every, neurons and protons, all the subatomic particles, that is the same, that has information and energy that we don't necessarily understand. Whatever that is, we can call it spiritual. I like calling it that because it's there and it connects everything to everything, and yet it still defines things as anyway. Well, you can tell I spent a lot of time researching all this stuff.
Yeah, and I was going to say,
there's a lot to say about how we recover in this in Western culture, and it's incomplete. Yeah. And it's completely incomplete and unsupported.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm a business consultant, and it's actually kind of like being a doctor sometimes, because people want you to treat a symptom of their problems rather than treat the whole thing. It's like, actually, your business has all these problems, but you're only focused on the one pain point that you see or know about. Right. Like, you actually need to get right overall. Like, your mindset needs to get better. Like, you need to do this stuff. And it's no different with that. And I was going to ask you, like, have you seen any positives that have come out of the darkness? But I mean, you just mentioned, like, you're doing a lot of retraining of your brain, a lot of retraining of your physical being, right? And networking with a lot of people who have these same, symptoms, the disease, and other things that kind of help you kind of, I guess, not just spread awareness, and you're doing that as well, but also help yourself feel alleviated from a lot of the pressure that you were putting on your own self because you didn't know what was going on.
Yeah. I mean, it's, there have been so many positive, what was it? 20 years ago, almost now, I came down with this thing called Guillain-Barré syndrome, where I was paralyzed from the neck down. And as difficult and that was much easier but I mean, even with that, there was still, in the first 48 to 72 hours of that, there was a lot of, before I went to the hospital in New Zealand, there was still a lot of, oh, Scott, pull yourself together, you're being dramatic, and I'm not saying that to be point fingers. I'm not, and be unfair to the people my bandmates and my tour manager and stuff like that. Because to be honest, I have a big personality, and a lot, and I've heard that my whole life, is stop being dramatic, right? Yeah. But all that really means is I'm actually wildly open and in touch with my feelings.
Yeah.
Which makes people uncomfortable. Fair enough. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but it's like, it took a doctor to be like, no, you're ill, you're not going anywhere for 8 days, you can't finish your tour, and then you need to go home to New York. It's like, but there was still this, like, oh, maybe and while I was sick, while I was learning to stand again and do all this stuff, I still kept in my brain, maybe I'm making too big a deal out of this. As I have neurologists and pathologists, and I mean, all of these people working with me, and physical therapists that are like, you're ill.
Yeah.
Like, there's a psychological, emotional component to being a sick person that nobody treats. It's not part of the treatment, and I don't understand why. It's absurd and it's offensive.
Yeah.
We don't care about quality of life.
Yeah. I mean, ask any war veteran, right?
Evidently yeah, I mean, but and yet still, like, it gets worse and worse and worse, and I
Yeah.
don't understand. I mean, and it's like, yeah, I don't understand. I mean, luckily, like, one of the positive things. Sorry, my coffee's all the way back there. One of the things that's been remarkable and has been both heartbreaking and eye-opening and humanizing for me is watching, like, we spent thousands of dollars beginning this process, and we could only allocate a certain amount of money to it.
Yeah.
You know, because it's like, I mean, I got kids, we have, you know, a home, we have all this stuff that we're, you know, and coming out of a pandemic and me not functioning as well as I can, you know, it's like money is tight for everybody. It's just,
Yeah.
it's a weird time in our country and around the world financially. There's so much uncertainty, and even more so, the uncertainty is in our faces constantly. And
Yeah.
if you don't know about all the uncertainty, again, there's a shame component and all sorts of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, it just getting started tapped us out, and we had to, you know, and my friend Jesse started a GoFundMe for us.
Yeah.
And watching people show up, express their love, their support, and it not be a transactional expression, because that is so, it feels so rare.
Yeah.
And for me, it was hard at first for me to be like, I would just break down constantly for the first week that we had, and kind of first 2 weeks that we had the GoFundMe. Is it's like, how often do you see that?
Yeah.
How often do we see that in our homes, in our jobs, in our friends? It's like, so often we've been trained that support and love are transactional. Well, I'm not going to get, you know, I know what you're going to do, so I'm not going to do this.
Yeah.
It's like, we've all been looking for unconditional love, and yet we're so protected about giving it.
Yep.
But this was everybody just showing up and like, dude, we love everything. Thank you for the music. This, you know, boom. It's like, and all they want is for me to get better.
Yep. Yeah.
It's unbelievable. I'm floored and unparalleledly grateful.
Yeah. And I believe that is still active. So I'll definitely share a link in the notes below. So yeah, it is one of those things, like you said, health insurance and health providers in the country are just, it's an anomaly of the world that we have to try to figure out how to pay for our own health stuff, you know, and you know, you could make how much ever money you want, but when you have to then treat an illness that you can't get coverage for, you're kind of screwed regardless of it. It's like, you know, you've all of a sudden got bills that this was never accounted for, right? Like, you're never like setting aside 40, 50, $60,000 for something that just comes up and you're like, I can't pay for this any other way. It's just insane that's how the country works. And, you know, a lot of people do feel shame when they're like, you know, I got to do a GoFundMe. And I know that there's people worse off than me, but at the same time, there might be no other way for me to get through this.
Yeah. I mean, I heard somebody call it the, like, you know, new American insurance, Paul, like the new American medical insurance is GoFundMe, because it's more and more, you know, it's like, yeah, there's just stuff that they're like, oh, we'll cover this part, but not this part, because, you know, why would, you know, and I mean, look, I understand to a degree that there are people whose jobs it is to run a business.
Yeah.
And that there are people who rely upon that business to flourish in order for their families. Like, I get how the system works. But if subtle adjustments are made here and there, and people, look, no one gets away unscathed without making a certain amount of sacrifice.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, this is like, and it seems like there is, until we can deprogram our society's addiction to scarcity lifestyle, like, we're always going to be in this place where it's like, I don't have enough to give or share, or like, because if everybody did it just a little bit,
Yeah.
it would be amazing what could happen.
Yeah.
There's this idea sometimes, it's like, what if everybody did what you do? Good, positive or negative.
Yeah.
What if everybody, it's like, well, somebody else will do it. Well, what if everybody thought that way?
Yeah. What if everybody just picked up a piece of trash when they saw it on the street, right? What if everybody did this little thing?
And so, speaking of, like, my wife and I take these walks, and she brings a trash thing with her, and she picks up trash around our neighborhood. And people get weird about it because they feel shame about it. But that's not our point. We're not doing it to shame anybody. We're doing it because we do it.
Yeah.
Because it's our neighborhood.
Yeah.
And why wouldn't we? It's not to make a statement. It's just to do it.
Yeah.
Not everything is a political, religious, in your face fucking, I don't know if cursing is bad. Anyway,
swear as much as you want, Scott. Get heated.
Great. I try. It's like, I got kids, so I make up a lot of like curse words that don't exist.
Frigadoo.
Like, sometimes, yeah. But we're so sensitive in some ways and desensitized in others.
Yeah.
We really, it's this whole flipping that needs to happen, but it would take a cultural revolution to do it.
Yeah.
And everyone's terrified of what that would mean.
Yeah. So
it's like,
yeah. I mean, we could talk about this stuff all day. I know you have other things you got in your day and stuff, and I have a babysitter, so they have to leave at some point today too. So
fair enough. Yeah.
But I want to keep this on track because I wanted to obviously talk about the Littlest Man Band, which is a project you've been spearheading basically for, the last, 20 years pretty much. To me, it's a lot more jazzy than ska in a lot of ways. And one of the things I actually really like is that when you're vocalizing, I can almost hear you playing trumpet out of the vocalization of your mouth, right? It's like the way that you sing is like, it's like somebody's playing trumpet to your vocal cords. How do you describe what you kind of do? And do you think that maybe horns background changes the way that you sing things?
I mean, most definitely. Like, I would say, yeah, I've never really thought about it, but 100%. I mean, studying.
I like to put in the work, Scott. I listen to the music.
No, I appreciate it. I don't put a lot of conscious thought into anything I do. It all is, I work very somewhere between conscious and unconscious. I try to. So it's just kind of what, it's kind of whatever comes out, I'm like, well, that's what it is. But yeah, I mean, being that's where I really started to understand and work with melody creation and stuff like that. But I think it's probably a mix between that and just studying the other vocalists that I worked with. You know what I mean? Because it's like, I can't say that like being a backup vocalist for Real Big Fish for so many years hasn't informed the way I write lead melodies, because it's just it's the way that I hear things now. It's the way that like my brain works, and even in the scholars and so. But it's interesting. I never really thought about it being the horn line situation. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
I often, because there's times where it's like, I think as any creative person gets older, you start to try to like go, where can I clean things up a bit? Where can I sound a little more mature and a little more methodical, without like compromising the spontaneity and style of it?
Yeah.
And so I catch myself every now and then. I'm like, is that too crazy? And then anytime I say, is that too crazy? I go like, who cares? Like,
Yeah.
do it. And if it continues to not feel good, then maybe adjust it. But it's like, at that point, I stop thinking about it, and then I obsess about something else. But
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I do want to play, if you're okay with it. I forgot to actually ask your permission before we started this, but I would like to play the new single, Just Like You. I think it came out in March or somewhere
yeah,
in there. So what I'll do is during this next break, if you're okay with it, I'll play that song so that way people can get a feel for what the Littlest Man Band sounds like. So I just want to make sure, is it okay with you that I have consent to play that song? So Spotify,
play the
YouTube,
song. Yeah.
perfect. So we're going to listen to Just Like You by the Littlest Man Band. So stick around, as I'm going to be putting Scott in the spotlight with some hot seat questions when we return. So Powered by Rock podcast will return right after this.
Gotta be just like you, graceful and delicate, 'cause nothing less will do. A certain something hidden behind bright eyes, the sweetest tenderness that never dies. And now I realize that I've been looking in all the wrong places, looking at all the wrong faces, when all I really want is all I really want is you. When I fall in love again, she's gotta have a sense of humor. Get her kicks by spreading gossip and rumors. That petty shit drives me up the wall. I won't stand for that kind of thing at all. But now I recall, hey, you have mentioned that that ain't your bag. So at the risk of being a drag, I could have never asked for more. I
Welcome back to the Powered by Rock podcast. I'm here with Scott Klopfenstein of the Littlest Man Band, Real Big Fish, and the Scholars, just to name a few. Scott, are you ready to be put in the spotlight?
Oh, I've been dying for it.
And I mean, I
I
can
love
even kind
being
of
in the
see.
spotlight.
It
I'm
looks
an
like you're in one.
egomaniac,
Yeah, it looks like when you're in one right now. So we're good. All right. So, question one. This one's not too heated, but in all of your travels and performances, do you have one performance that stands out to you as just being a defining moment in your career?
Yeah, there was. I want to say it was at the end of our very first tour, although it may have been at the end, like our very first international or national tour that was like a month and a half, the first time we've been gone that long. But it might have been at the end of our second. I don't remember. But all I know is it was the very end of a tour, and we got put on a radio show. I mean, this was really early in our career, and we were exhausted, and we were in a van, and we were not like, we were bleary eyed and ready to go home. And they're like, "Oh, you guys have got added to this thing. You got to do it." And we're like, "Okay." And so we pull up to the back of this venue. We have no idea what's going on. We get out of our van. There's all these tour buses. We go to the backstage of this thing. We see the guys from The Offspring who we'd met before. We're like, "Hey, what's going on?" And they're like, "What's up?" And they go out, and they're going out to play. And we're like, "I don't know." So we're like in our dressing room. We smell bad. I don't know what we look like. But we're just like so exhausted and ready to go home. We're like,
Yeah.
"Please let us go home." So this must have been our second tour, because now I'm remembering the end of our first tour. And so we're sitting there, and they're like, "Okay, it's time for you guys to go on." Like the horns are like, "Ha, ha, ha." We're like, "Oh God." And our like instruments are already out there. Like our techs have already put everything out there. And we come around the corner, and it's like, it's a giant shed. It's like 15,000 people.
Wow.
And they're all going crazy, like insane crazy. And we'd never seen anything like it. We were like, "What is happening? Why do they know it's us?"
Yeah.
And obviously they knew it was us, but like, we had never really experienced that level of like being, quote unquote, whatever the fucking word means, famous.
Yeah.
But we step out in front of 15,000 people, and they are so excited to see us. It is, we got swept up, and all of a sudden we had energy, and we put on a show. I mean, I don't even remember the show. It was a blur.
Yeah.
Because you're just constantly, and it was one of those, it's a shed, so it goes up, right? So you're constantly like looking up, and it's this wall of people, and it was just amazing and like so beautiful. And we just kept looking at each other like, "Is this happening? I don't understand. We're Real Big Fish.
Yeah.
We're a ska band. Are you sure this is what you're looking for?" And I think we kind of kept that mentality through a lot of our career, which is how, and not taking it for granted ever. Like, you just go, "We're a ska band, gang. I don't know how this is possible."
Yeah.
We're a dorky, like, ska glam punk band from Southern California who, like, I played trumpet professionally. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And was a rock star, quote unquote, sort of.
Yeah.
Playing trumpet.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean,
Like,
you definitely played the sidekick role a bit as well. I mean, you're obviously like training with Aaron a lot as well. So
yeah, but it was just, it's that was a defining moment where we just like, it really hit us like what was possible, and where we were going. And it just, people, I guess we've always talked about, it's like, we just did Chris DeMakis' podcast. He's like, he's like, "When did you know you had a hit?" And Aaron and I looked at each other. We're like, "What is a hit? Like, you don't know you have a hit." I still don't think of it as having a hit, but it was.
Yeah.
But
That
it's
actually
like,
segues perfectly into my second question, because I watched that interview with you and Aaron on Krista Makis's podcast. It's hard to say whatever. I don't know.
I think it's Chris Demakis with an apostrophe at the
Without
end.
the extra S, right? Like it's hard to
Yeah.
say. It's like
Sorry,
people don't know how to
my
possess it.
mother's a big grammar person,
Yeah.
so I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's just Chris Demakis.
Yeah. So you just kind of have to emphasize it with your head. Demakis podcast.
Yeah.
But obviously a question that you'll probably be asked, and Aaron's probably asked, and I just realized when I typed this, I have Aaron with 3 A's, which is hilarious. But
He's a 3A Aaron, I'll say.
Yeah. Do you guys ever see a Real Big Fish reunion coming back? Do you have the conversations with Aaron as being part of that? Or is it something that you, if they do come back, you would not be part of?
I mean, if there was an opportunity, I would not say no.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Aaron and I, we don't talk about it, but we don't not talk about it. Aaron and I have I think at times Aaron and I are very good at like reading each other and like going and not going in places to talk, we love each other's company. Like we just, there is something that spending that much time with a guy, and being so like intertwined life-wise and like knowing the history and then like writing together and working together and fighting and that like, yeah, like right now, Aaron's not saying, I don't think either of us is saying no to anything, but it's just not, we just want to enjoy each other's friendship.
Yeah.
And like when he came on my Twitch show a year or so ago, we had so much fun, and we do enjoy performing together, in that, like with no pressure and just, I don't know. Will that happen? I can't say it won't. I'm sure like at some point, when, who knows, but I would love to do it. I would love to be involved. Cause it's such an important, when I left, I left because I felt like I was losing perspective, and I don't want anybody on that stage who doesn't want to be there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I can't be that person who's like up there and not giving it everything. That's just not how I work. And so I needed to take a little bit of a break, sometimes you've got to.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to even start playing any kind of music. It's like when I came off the road, I took about a 2-year just hiatus from making music at all. And so, but I love working with Aaron, and I like the way his brain works. I like how he writes. I think he's hilarious.
Yeah. One thing I didn't know about you as a musician, until I saw you live for the first time, was that you can actually shred on the guitar as well. And I didn't know that until I think you guys pulled out Beer, and you were playing the lead guitar on Beer. And I was like, wait, what? The trumpet player can shred on guitar? Like, what the hell's happening right now? But like, obviously now that I see all the other music you've made, like it's clear that you can play other music. You can play piano, guitar, and all that stuff. So it's you and Aaron, like even able just to kind of do that kind of stuff, riff back and forth, play other instruments, do what you want and have fun. A Real Big Fish show is never not fun. It's always fun. I saw you guys open in Eugene, or you guys headline in Eugene, Oregon, and Sum 41 was a support act for you like the week before Fat Lip came out. And I was like, holy shit, this band's huge all of a sudden. Yeah. I mean, that was a crazy thing. And I love those guys. They were one of the very like few bands that like returned the favor in a big way. We took so many bands out at the beginning of their career, and and some of those guys have wound up being, we took Maroon 5 out on tour back when they were under a different name, and we love, because we were like, we love this band. Yeah.
and it was, you know, and it's
Back when
always
they
been
still
so
had
great.
a California jammy ska
Yeah,
sound
yeah.
vibe almost. Yeah.
Well, yeah, they were like a power pop band, and now, of course, they're Maroon 5, and like, you know, and you know, and a bunch of sweethearts like those guys are, and you know, it's like we took nobody, like, for some reason, Sum 41 was having a hard time getting a tour in the States, and so we were like, yeah, we love this band, sounds awesome. So we took them out, and you know, they crushed every night. They were
Yeah.
an amazing band, and then like then they became Sum 41, and like
Yeah.
Derek was like dating Paris Hilton and stuff, and they were like, hey, we want to take you to Europe and the UK with us.
Nice.
And we were like, yeah. So we were playing like huge venues with them, and it's like, you know, forever grateful with them, because they helped us. I mean, they, like, we were doing Europe and the UK at that point, but they still, I mean, they bumped it up a notch
Yeah.
for us.
Yeah. At that peak in their career, I mean, they were putting out big shows. So
Huge shows. I mean, yeah, we went like, we went to the they were getting an award. Were we both getting awards? I don't remember. All I know is we were at the NME Awards, I think.
Oh, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like we were hanging out just like there. And then that's the time I met Paris Hilton, and I was just like, oh, there you go. And again, you wonder, you're like, oh,
This freaking guy.
trumpet player for a ska band. I don't know what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
You know, but it's, you know, like it's yeah, I mean, we always just wanted to, we're down for the scene, we're down for the cause, we're down for people who want to do this thing and do it because it's what they, you know, it's like, I think the one thing that makes this whole Lyme disease thing tolerable is because after we do this, you know, like there's something that kicks in for me, and it's just like, it's the show, you know, it's like, I'm not normally this energetic. It's just when the camera's on or the thing's on, it's like, this is who comes out. But then I'm going to have to take a nap because it's exhausting.
Yeah.
But I can work, I can play, I can write, the music part. If I couldn't do, I would be a shell of a human being, because it's what consumes my thoughts. It's how I connect with the world. It's how I process what's going on, you know. And when you see other people, no matter what their genre, I mean, Rubik Fish was big about this. It's like, that's why we tried to take as many interesting bands as we could out on tour, because we wanted to put on a show that was eclectic. You know, going over to Europe and the UK, their festivals are so broad and weird, and it's like, I remember in the show in it's called Rock and Ring in Germany, and we got there a day early before we played, and I watched Queens of the Stone Age, Outkast, and Radiohead on the same stage.
Wow.
It was the best.
And in Europe, like, you're likely to get like a Viking metal band or something too in there somewhere.
Oh, they put us on the like metal stage. We were in this tent with like 5,000 like drunken German metal fans, and it was like Static X and like all these crazy, you know, and we were like backstage, and we were like, well, it was great working with you guys. They're gonna murder us. But we went out and like we opened with like Scotanic, and then we did, you know, Everything Is Cool and Satan, and we did all of our like fast punk metal stuff, and they loved it, you know.
And then they can skank a little in between the breaks and stuff too.
Yeah, I mean, we survived somehow. But and again, that goes back to the beauty of Aaron's like approach. It was just like everything was fair game. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I was going to ask you, because this is actually question number 3. We've got 2 more to go after this, so we'll try to hurry it up.
So again, I'm the equation.
I know. I love to hear it, and normally I would spend all day talking to you, but obviously we got other.
You got a babysitter.
Time limits and stuff. Freaking time limits. But question number 3 is and this has got to be a hard one for me, even though I'm not a professional musician. It's not even that hard for me. But what's more rewarding, having a great family life or creating music? What's more rewarding?
I can't do either without either.
Yeah.
You know, okay. So during over the past couple of months, while my energy levels are low, I've started doing this thing that it's called creative coaching. And it's essentially helping people either put creativity back in their life or help them progress creatively or help them like artistically individuate, kind of find their own voice, or just be a sounding board and a cheerleader and take the 30 years of experience as a professional creative person and like pass it on, because I think that's wildly important.
Yeah.
And one of the things I tell the people that I work with is that life is the art.
Yep.
Period.
Yeah.
Living is the art form. The medium is the prism through which you shine the art form through in order to draw people in with the pretty colors it paints.
Yeah.
So they can feel comfortable having a human experience.
Yeah.
If I'm not living, if I'm not growing, if I'm not changing, if I'm not sacrificing, if I'm not finding ways to be of service, right? If I'm not expanding my patience, tolerance, and love of myself, the people around me, and my community at large, then I've got nothing to create for.
Yeah.
I've got nothing to put through the prism.
I agree.
So it's kind of a chicken or the egg situation to a degree.
Yeah.
But it's like, I didn't get into making music just for the music's sake, because I was trying to make sense of the world.
Yeah.
And this was one of the first things that I could consciously latch onto that said, when I heard it, I went, I feel like this sees me. How do I return the favor and tap deeper into this thing that makes sense of the world and creates a space where I can be of service, where I can help connect and create catharsis for others.
Yeah.
And it really, I mean, like, even though I think for me, there were a lot of selfish motivations at first, like there is for any young person, it's like, see me, understand me, I need to feel special.
Yeah.
Which there's nothing wrong with that. But it has transitioned as I've gotten older and matured and experienced more and learned to love deeper and with a deeper amount of sacrifice. So that for me, they're indispensable to one another, because if I take away the music, I have a hard time processing the life that I live and figuring out how to, like, connect. Whereas if I'm not living a life, then there's nothing to put through there.
For sure.
And for me, it does wind up being, it's like, what requires me to give up more of myself? What requires me to crack open a little bit and not focus on me so much?
Yeah.
But focus on, my kids need me to be a better dad today than I was yesterday.
Yeah.
They do, because they're older than they were yesterday. They've changed and grown. My wife needs me to be a better husband and friend and partner today than I was yesterday. And sometimes I'm good at that and sometimes I'm not. But this is the stuff that, for me, is what leads me towards, I have something to put into the magic box that I can then shake around and I mean, that's a weird side metaphor, but I can't make music that's, for me, I can't make music that's any good if I'm not living a life based on like humility and growth.
Yeah. And it's weird because like, I still don't know where I come up with ideas for music or writing or songs or even just writing poetry or whatever. I'm just like a thing just hits me and I snatch it out of the air and like start writing. And it's like, I didn't even realize I had all those thoughts. I just had an initial spark and decided to do something. So you're right. Yeah. Without living the life, you don't get that kind of stuff. All right. So let's go to question 4. This one
Okay.
could be short because it's just asking you what's
Sure.
one thing you have not done in your career that you would still like to achieve.
Wow. Boy, there's one thing. There's a lot.
Yeah.
I have not. Okay. I have not put out something that was solely mine that has garnered the attention of my heroes.
Okay.
I have been so lucky to be a part of Real Big Fish that did get the attention and appreciation of so many of my early heroes.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, Dave Wakeling from the English Beat and the Selector, and getting to meet, you know, I mean, Huey Lewis, you know, the guys in Green Day, you know, so many of my early heroes. But it's like there are certain people who I keep this little secret box of, like, Elvis Costello is one.
Okay.
Gilberto Gil, this just anything Gilberto Gil does is phenomenal. I have these songwriters and like creative people that are just like, you know, everything they do is amazing. So it's one is Elvis Costello, the other is Gilberto Gil, and to like, you always hear these stories. I remember hearing this story about how when Harry Nilsson put out his first record, that one day he got a phone call, and it was Paul McCartney going, "Hey, Harry, this is Paul. I love your new record, and I'd love to work with you."
Yeah.
You know, and then the next day he got a phone call, "Hello, Harry, this is John. I love your new record." And so it's like what?
Yeah.
You know,
It's really interesting that you mentioned this, because my fifth question actually goes directly into this. I feel like these were like made by like reading your mind or incepting you somehow. But the fifth question, actually, you could just pick up the conversation here. What 4 musicians would you put on your personal Mount Rushmore for being influential or being your favorite? So I don't know if Elvis Costello and Gilberto Gil.
Elvis Costello, definitely one. Gilberto Gil is the other. I would say Frank Zappa.
Okay.
And then Erykah Badu.
Oh, wow.
Erykah Badu is like, just what a creative, like, what an just not a thing that woman doesn't just take my breath away.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I'm going to send your newest single and then this little clip to all 4 of those people. I know Frank Zappa is going to have to take it into the great beyond, but I'm sending it out there to them and see if they can respond back to you. It's
just like, actually anybody in the Soulquestrian movement, because it was, I'd put one more, and that would be, probably Questlove, because Questlove was a part of so much of the important music that like moved and actually really inspired the Littlest Man Band.
Yeah.
So it's like Erykah Badu's Mama's Gun, D'Angelo's Voodoo, just this stuff was like, it was like, oh, so much can be done.
Yeah.
Like, this is exciting. And always groundbreaking. You know what I mean? Like, never not groundbreaking.
Yeah.
Never not like whenever they do something, I just stand up and go, what? I have so much more work to do. I have so much more like freedom to take and so many more chances and risks to like throw out there. You know, because that's always the thing, right? It's always like, if I'm taking a risk, well, for instance, like the single I put out before, Just Like You, is a song called Sidled Up.
Yeah.
Or Sidle Up. It's just Sidle Up.
Yeah.
There's no D. That was a song I didn't like. I wasn't going to put it out. And I realized why I wasn't going to put it out is because it was too vulnerable for me. It hit me in a place that really hurt.
Yeah.
And I showed it to a friend of mine, to my best friend, and she was like, no, you should maybe work on this song. And then I was in the studio with John, and we were working on a completely different song. And I was just playing it. And John's like, what is that? I was like, oh, it's a song. I don't know if I like it. He's like, would you play it for me, please? And I played it for him. He's like, we're going to stop. Honestly, this is what happened. Because he went to the bathroom and he came back and I was playing the song. He's like, what is that? And I was like, here's the whole song. And he's like, okay, we're going to stop what we're doing now. And this is what we're going to focus on. He's like, what? Do you have any other songs that you haven't played me? And I was like, oh yeah, there's a ton. And he's like, I don't have time for that right now. Let's focus on this. Because I have so many songs that I'm just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And people are just like, what do you mean? And then I go, oh, it's really personal. And they're like, duh, stupid, duh. And I have some wonderful like friends in my life that can talk to me like that and I don't get offended. They're like, you dumb. Share this with people. They need it. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
But anyway, that would be it. Elvis Costello, Gilberto Gil, Frank Zappa, Erykah Badu, Questlove.
Very cool. Well, that's it. The spotlight is off. Scott is still with us, which is great. And we'll be back after this quick break to wrap things up and talk about what's in store for Scott, the Littlest Man Band, and anything else that we got coming up in the near future. And we'll be back right after this.
Reverend Guitars embodies the idea that every run of scorching lead and every roll of finger-picked twang deserve the same passion and commitment to quality. Whether you're selling out arenas or playing in your living room, we know that what makes an instrument powerful is when players wield them to create something remarkable. A melody that moves mountains, a riff that just won't quit. We want to be there in your hands when that happens. For us, that means staying true to what we believe. Somewhere along the road of electric guitar history, it became a crazy idea that guitar makers should craft guitars with the same sense of purpose and passion, whether they're played in a bedroom or an arena. If that's a wild idea, then we're in the right place, carrying 6 strings and an attitude, and we're in good company. Reverend Guitars. Well played.
Running your own music career is incredibly difficult. Trying to get people to like, share, comment, listen, follow, it's all just overwhelming. Most musicians give up before they ever achieve success, and that's the worst. If you're looking for a better way to grow your music career, head to DIYrockcareer.com for some absolutely free training. It costs you nothing, and it could be the difference between hitting your goals and quitting your dream. Go to DIYrockcareer.com today by clicking the link below this episode.
Then I lost my way.
Welcome back to the Power by Rock podcast, where I've been speaking with Scott Klopfenstein from the Littlest Man Band and Real Big Fish. So, Scott, let's talk about what's going on with you and with the Littlest Man Band. You got a lot of stuff going on. You got Twitch going on. You've got creative coaching, as we've mentioned. You got some shows with the Littlest Man Band coming up. So let's talk about that. Go ahead and shoot us with everything you got.
So yeah, I've been doing Twitch for the past 3 years. Kind of unbelievable to believe. Unbelievable to believe. Yes, that's me. So yeah, if you go to twitch.com/Scott Klopfenstein, we stream on Mondays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. And Mondays and Fridays are in the evening, and Wednesdays and Thursdays are in the morning. It's just great fun, and it's and the thing I like about it is it's like crowdfunding.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like it's I'm playing, I'm working, I'm keeping my chops fresh, and it's interactive too. It's communal. That's what I miss a lot. And I
you
feel
get
like
heckled
it's really,
all the time. No, I'm just kidding.
I do. It's true. I mean, and I've made friends, and it's like when we've gone on tour, it's like, hey, I've never met you face to face before. This is amazing. And you really get to know people. And so that we've been doing that, which is super rad. We have a couple shows. The Littlest Man Band has some shows coming up, which on September 9th at the Garden Amphitheater in Garden Grove, California. We're playing the 3rd annual Summer Sizzler. It's going to be Bite Me Bambi, the Littlest Man Band, a band called the Wolves of Glendale that are hilarious. And then a band called the McCharmleys just got added, and they're awesome. It's great. they always, I mean, I would recommend people get tickets ahead of, as soon as possible, because the show always sells out. So,
Yeah. Wolves of Glendale are funny. I keep getting Instagram reels with them.
Hilarious.
Cracks me up.
Yeah. And so then we're doing a show called the Maximum Ska and P Fest, and I keep making up what the P stands for.
I think it's supposed to be punk. I taltalked to the guy who
I'm
runs
sure
it.
I know it's supposed to be punk, but it's P for some reason, and I was just like, okay, then I'm just going to make up whatever I want. I mean, Passamaquoddy. But so that's happening on October 7th, and that's going to be a ton of bands: Littlest Man Band, Loser, B420, just so many bands.
Yeah.
And then, I've been doing this thing called creative coaching, where I had a friend who was like, so a lot of the people that I look up to, and a lot of the artists that, I read a lot of autobiographies and things. And one of the things that a lot of the people teaching is important to a lot of them.
Yeah.
And giving something back. And so I have so much experience and knowledge and wildly successful friends in different disciplines of creativeness. So some of them are chefs, some of them are visual artists, some of them are writers for television and movies, and some of them are theater actors and all sort, and creativity, I have found, is the approach to creativity, no matter what the discipline is often very similar. Yeah. And I read about different disciplines because I think it's important to utilize certain things like that to kind of get around to my work as well. It's like, I love reading about modern dance. I love dance. I'm a huge fan, but reading about Pina Bausch or Twyla Tharp or stuff like that is like hugely important. And so I found that, being able to help people, no matter where they are in their creative life, or they don't have a creative life and they just want one, has been really rewarding. And so if anybody's interested in that, they can hit me up at klopfensteincoaching@gmail.com. I haven't quite put the site together yet.
Yeah.
But it's really fulfilling. And I mean, I'm working with teachers and aspiring writers and songwriters, because, I know a lot about that, but then, visual artists and stuff. And it's pretty great. And I find it very fulfilling to be able to pass off the knowledge. And while I don't have always the energy to go out and do, play months and months of shows and do all the stuff, it's like to sit and talk about creativity just makes me happy, and I mean, there's a point at which, when as I'm putting the whole thing together, I'll probably go, I went to the Orange County High School of the Arts here that's in Santa Ana in Southern California. And we've talked to them about teaching a master class. And then there's also some other School of the Arts here in Southern California that I've been talking about it with as well. And it's a great opportunity. And I just dedicate an hour to 2 hours of my day to talking with people. And I like to be of service. I like helping, and as I'm getting older, regardless of Lyme diseases, it's like, I do want to be home a little more and with my kids and stuff like that. And teaching also feels really good to be able to watch someone else flourish. And I had so many great mentors in my life, so many incredible mentors and in my life, that to be able to return the favor. Because that's what it feels. It's for me, it's always about doing something reciprocal. Yeah.
And I feel like almost everybody who's ever done something successfully had somebody they could, look up to, learn from. Mentors are absolutely an underrated phenomena in American culture. In almost every other country, it's like the way to do something. Here, it's like you just push through, you'll figure it out, or, you go to school, you get the right connections and you'll make it, right? But everybody needs a mentor. If you don't have one single mentor in your life, get one, find one, because you'll become better at what you do right away.
Well, and the thing that I think is interesting is I know that a lot of times they just don't get talked about, but most of the successful people that I know have all had mentors.
Yep.
All of them.
Yep.
Whether they talk about it or not. And so it's like, and again, mentor is such a lofty word, but it's somewhere between a coach and a cheerleader. Because I just love creativity.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how good somebody is. I'm not here to judge that. I'm here
Yeah.
to watch somebody grow.
Yeah.
That's what's
Gotta
exciting,
start somewhere.
right? And it's like, and it's like creativity. There's a difference between creativity and artistry.
Yeah.
Creativity is the raw thing, and then you get into the more like developing of instincts and influences and stuff like that to
Skill
create
sets and stuff, yeah.
craft into artistry. But it's like people are afraid to be creative. There's a shame. There's a like, what if I get it wrong? And it's like there is no right or wrong.
Yeah.
You know, it's like there's this great Jack Kerouac poem that talks about the history of bebop, and I'm going to paraphrase because I can't quote it directly, but he's like, you know, you had Thelonious Monk or John Coltrane walking down the street and hearing coming out of a storefront a sudden and distinct mistake in music. And that's when they invented bebop. They were like, oh, we're missing an opportunity here.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, there's no right or wrong. It's like, what's possible? You know, listen to like something like Pillow Wand, which is a record made by Thurston Moore and Nels Cline, and it's just two dudes and guitars making crazy noises.
Yeah.
Or you sit down and listen to, Julius Eastman, who's a fantastic like minimalist composer, and the delicacy with which things are composed, and it's like, and still like not necessarily sticking to romantic forms or what have you, but like cultivating an unbelievable visceral and emotional experience in experimenting with all the same materials.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's spontaneous or constructed, like there's no right or wrong. There's just what is. And then you go, well, this doesn't feel right, or it doesn't go in the right direction, or I'm thinking this, or I want to clean this up a little bit, or I can make more sense of this, or whatever it is. But it's like so many people. I had a great theater director who, when I was composing for theater in New York, told me writer's block is just editing something you haven't written yet.
Yeah, exactly right. Stopping yourself
and it's
at
like,
the start.
Oh my gosh, it's that simple. We love to complicate things, but this stuff is really simple. It just takes somebody saying, hey, I'm giving you permission, but you don't need it.
Yeah.
We all want permission, but the fact of the matter is it's like, you don't need it.
Yeah. Well, Victor Wooten, the really incredible bass player, I saw a video of him online where he was just like, there are no wrong notes. All the music theorists are wrong. And he's just like, watch this. And he's just playing a song. He's literally playing
I've seen that
he
clip.
wants. And I'm like, what the hell? Yeah, it sounds fine, but like, absolutely,
it's all
those are
in
not
the
part of any
feel
scale.
and in the groove.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all in like the commitment to what you're playing, and like, it's there is no right or wrong. And it's like, there's right or wrong for you.
Yeah.
But like, you write those rules.
Yep.
You know, like I can write something and go, ugh, I don't like that. But that's my rule.
Yeah.
And sometimes my rules aren't right, as I just talked about 10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Sometimes my rules are the ones that are keeping me from being effective.
Absolutely. That's everything that I got for you today, Scott. I just want to say, I thank you so much. I do want to have one last thing from you, in the sense of, if you have any recommendations for a new music, new band, new album, new song that is not yours, that you would like to recommend, what do you got?
Let me see. What am I listening to right now? Okay. Yes. The new Gabriel's record.
Okay.
Is just blowing my mind.
Yeah. Haven't actually listened to it yet.
I'm obsessed with the new. It's just Gabriel's, not the Gabriel's. It's just Gabriel's. It's called Angels and Queens, and then I'm gonna do two, because I seriously, I can't stop listening to these two records. And then the new, and I never know how to say this. I should probably look into it, but it's Anoni.
Anoni?
It's all capital Anohni. So it
Okay.
used to be, they used to go by Anthony from Anthony and the Johnsons, but now they just go by Anohni. The record is called My Back Was a Bridge for You to Cross. It is beautiful.
Nice.
These two records are like, I'm like mad. Because and this is what I love. It's like, I'm like, oh, I wanted to write that.
Yeah.
Why did, they're so beautiful. The production is incredible on both the records. The arrangements are fun and thoughtful and groundbreaking at times, and yet still very familiar. Like they ride this place between progressing into new territory while still staying very relatable and familiar and beautiful.
Yeah.
It's just two great records. I highly recommend. I mean, I spend every Friday spending about 2 to 3 hours digging through and finding new artists and familiar, and just so that nothing skips. I think new music's great.
Yeah.
I'm not one of those people that's like, it's not like it used to be. It's like, thank
Yeah.
God we already did that.
Yeah, exactly right.
It's
literally the tagline of the show. Rock music's not dead. You just stop paying attention.
Yeah, it's like, this stuff is great. I mean, if you haven't listened to the new King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, what are you doing with your time?
Well, I mean, they've got like
don't
36
understand.
albums in the last like 7 years. So
The new one is so good. It's such like thrash metal. Like seriously, I listen to that a lot as well.
Yeah.
And
cool.
and I could never write that way.
Yeah.
It just doesn't come to me that way, but it's like,
I'm going to blame it on
so
the
many
Australian seawater or something there.
oh man, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's like, what am I listening to? So many. I mean, the new Madeline Kenny is really good. I think it's called A New Reality Mind. That's more of like an electronic record. I think it's really beautiful. I listen just constantly listening to stuff. There's a new Buju Banton record coming out that I'm excited about. I could talk about what's coming out forever.
Yeah. One of these days I'm going to call you back and be like, let's talk about music all day, forever.
All day. Yeah, no, it's seriously, it's like, I have Apple Music, and you're only allowed to have a limited amount of like songs and albums. So I have to go through and like get rid of stuff to make space for new stuff, which is totally fine. Like, I'm not always constantly listening to everything, like there are certain records I hold on to, but it's like, I don't need to have everything always, because it's already there. If I go like, oh, I want to listen to that record, I just go and listen to it. But it's in my library, you can only have like, it's a small number. It's like 100,000 songs or something like that.
Which seems like a lot, but then when you start
like a lot,
how many songs? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, luckily it's not based on time, because I listen to a lot of like stuff that's like one song that's like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
But it's like, I like going into places that I don't understand.
Yeah.
Because I want to grow.
Yeah.
And I want to be able to know, like I got kids. I've got a 12-year-old and a 9-year-old, and they're constantly showing me stuff. And I'm like, dude, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Sometimes they show me stuff and I'm like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
But it's like, at the same time, sometimes they show me stuff and I'm like, I'm stoked. And then sometimes they show me stuff and I was like, oh, I know what that is. And I know that person. And they're like, what?
Yeah.
How do you know that person? And I'm like, I know that person. They're like, and then they get blown away and they're like, I keep forgetting what you do. And I'm like, I know people. But
every once in a while.
Every now and then, yeah.
I'm cool now, right? I'm cool.
Right? No, I'm never cool. I was playing like I was listening to Fugazi in the car yesterday as we came back from where we were getting dessert, and my eldest was in the car with me, and she was listening to something else on her headphones. I was like, just do me a favor and pull your headphones out and listen. And then I started explaining who Fugazi was and how they worked and all sorts of stuff. And she's like, oh.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Cool. And I was like, all right. And she's like, all right. And then she like listened. And then she just stared out the window and listened. And I was like, are you digging it? And she's like, it's interesting. I was like, it's Fugazi. It's one of the
Yeah.
best bands that ever existed.
Yeah. It's going to fight the
I
man.
would put Fugazi. I would put Fugazi on that Mount Rushmore as well.
Yeah.
See,
Yeah.
there's
Great
too many
band.
people. Too many people.
Well, I do want to thank you for all your time today, Scott. It's an incredible honor to have you here. It's been incredible to talk to you, incredible to listen to your stories. I'll put all the notes and all the links in the show notes below this episode. So go check out, GoFundMe, check out his creative coaching, check out the Littlest Man Band. The shows that are coming up, go, if you're in California, especially go to those shows. And guys, remember the Powered by Rock podcast is powered by our listeners. To show us some support, please be sure to subscribe and share the podcast on social media. You can also make a donation below if you'd like to. The podcast can help us keep making awesome shows with awesome guests like Scott. And then obviously, if you want to see the full video interview, it's on YouTube or Spotify. So if you are just listening, you can actually go check out this interview on YouTube or Spotify. If you want to check out,
I'm showing a lot of chest hair, so
Yeah.
you might want to check it out. Yeah,
but unbutton more, Scott. Show some skin.
show some skin.
If you want to check out some of our awesome content or our merch and gear, head to poweredbyrock.com to see what's good there. That's our show for today. I'll see you soon for the next episode. Until then, rock on.
Supposed to be easy is coming.